I grew up here at Lead Hill. Went to school at Lead Hill. I graduated in 1957. My family have been here quite a long time. You know, my grandpa, my dad farmed on White River before the lake came in, and it's kind of a subsistence kind of farming. You just kind of raise stuff to eat and live on. But I can remember very well, those years. We lived kind of in the area of possum trot or hog jaw back in there, which was communities. In my younger years, but I do remember living where Diamond City is now. We lived up behind, there's a little dairy diner area, cafe there. Well, we lived there when I was, I probably in the first, second grade in school. And, but anyway, my grandpa and Granny, Dixon, they kind of, well, Grandpa's folks kind of came in across the river from Pro-Temp in that area. And my grandmother, she was a full-blood Indian, or almost. She might have been just a little less than full-blood Indian, but she really looked that part. She was Cherokee, and she's told me stories about her growing up. Her maiden name was Keys, and but we've had a part of the family that lived at Branson did a genealogy on our family that dated back to somewhere in 1850 or something like that, and that's about far as it went. But my grandpa, his ancestors came through Tennessee, and they lived at Dixon, Tennessee, in their early years, and came kind of across part of the Missouri Boot Heel in that area, and they wound up just over the line, across the river, at that time. But on my mom's side, her folks their names were Stinnett, and on one side of the family was Stinnett, but her dad was a McGrew. Yeah, they immigrated in near the same time into this area as my dad's side. Now, the Coker family that's been kind of highlighted in this area as being the early settlers in Lead Hill, they were somehow, the Keyses and the Cokers were intermarried or something, I've questioned my mom. Mom's is almost 97, and she remembers a lot of that. And I questioned my mom about that, and she, she knows. My mom still has her memory good, and she knows a lot of the old history. But I really don't know about the Trail of Tears, thing. It's I remember we lived across down in the community of Hogjaw, which is, it's not isolated, but it's now, but the way to get there is kind of different than it used to be. And I went to a one-room school at Possum Trot for about a half a year. And then that little school got taken into the Lead Hill School District. And they ran a bus into that area, and the kids walked and kind of congregated at a point, you know, and the bus picked them up and hauled them to school. And we came across the creek and to Lead Hill through the way now that is down on the lake. I mean, it's Robert's Resort, just an old road that goes across and under the lake. Well, I remember the old school bus had a wooden, the body was wood on the bus instead of metal, and it had seats that ran lengthways, and we sat on those seats, you know, and looking at each other, the kids. So. But I remember the old bus had trouble getting up the hills, you know, especially if it's just snow an inch or just a little. The bus couldn't get up the hill because you went down into the creek and then back up the other. There's hills on both sides, so. Well, I think maybe the most beneficial thing that's ever been in my life is the fact that in my young life, I became a believer in the Lord. And I tell you, I was saved and baptized at Southside Baptist Church in Lead Hill. And through the years, that's been the greatest blessing in my whole life. You know, there were some times after high school that I didn't stay in church all the time. But after I met my wife, I stayed in church all the time after that because she was a Christian girl. And all those times that I was out of church, and I always knew if I needed some help, I had some from the good Lord. And after I became a job superintendent, I spent a lot of time behind the tool house or somewhere asking the Lord how to help me do some stuff, because I was a young man and I took on some challenges that was way over my head, you know. But I've been so blessed in my life, and I credit the bigger part of it to that very thing right there.